Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Public Utilities for the City of Santa Rosa to order. If we may have a roll call, please.
Board Member Wright?
Here.
Board Member Mullen?
Here.
Board Member DeWitt?
Here.
Board Member Bartholow?
Here.
Board Member Badenfort is absent. Vice Chair Arnone?
Here.
Chair Galvin?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all board members are present with the exception of Board Member Badenfort.
Thank you. Any statements of abstention by board members? Very good. We will move to item 4.1, which is unfortunately a proclamation for departing board member Robin Bartholow. We're sorry to see you go, but we certainly understand the circumstances, so I have the honor of reading the proclamation that we're going to give to you. Whereas Robin Bartholow was appointed to the Board of Public Utilities by the City Council member Diana McDonald in January 2023, and whereas during her more than 3 years of service with the Board of Public Utilities, Ms. Bartholow has consistently demonstrated outstanding leadership, thoughtful governance, and a strong commitment to the City of Santa Rosa's Water Department. And whereas Ms. Bartholow contributed significantly as a member of the Budget Review Subcommittee, offering insightful analysis, valuable feedback, and sound fiscal guidance that strengthened the board's stewardship of public resources. And whereas Ms. Bartholow brought a clear and steady focus on cost-effective, reliable, and environmentally responsible delivery of water, stormwater, and wastewater services, ensuring the long-term well-being of Santa Rosa residents and businesses. And whereas Ms. Bartholow's positive attitude, preparedness, and collaborative spirit elevated the work of the board, and her careful review of operational, maintenance, and capital budgets, as well as water and sewer rate structures, reflects her dedication to transparent and effective public service. And whereas, with an understanding of the board's responsibility to make difficult but necessary decisions regarding infrastructure maintenance, repair, and replacement, Ms. Bartholow approached this work with diligence, compassion, and a strong commitment to ensuring Santa Rosa Water's ability to continue providing safe, sustainable, and dependable water distribution, stormwater management, and wastewater collection, treatment, and reuse services to the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Public Utilities of the City of Santa Rosa does hereby recognize, commend, and express sincere appreciation to Robin Bartholow for her dedicated service, principled leadership, and commitment to the community of Santa Rosa. And I happily signed it. You may, or I thought I'd open it up first of all for board member comments, and then we'll hear from you. How's that, Robin? Board member comments? Vice Chair Arnone?
I'd just like to say it's been a pleasure working with you, and I expect that because busy people, you always go to busy people to get things done. So I'm sure we will be seeing you around because you are a busy person and you get things done, and look forward to working with you in the future. And really do appreciate the time we've worked together on this board. So thank you.
Yeah, I have to say, Robin, we go back a long ways, back to the old North Coast Builders Exchange days when I was on that board and you were a staff member, and you've always been so easy to work with, always prepared, always looking out for the entity that you're representing, whether it's here at the board level or wherever. And we're definitely going to miss you and your intuitions and your knowledge. So I wish you the best in the future, and sorry to see you go. Board member Wright?
I as well will miss Robin, and actually, the whole community has enjoyed Robin's help with us on the board, and she's been a fantastic board member, and I wish life wasn't so complicated, and I wish you could stick around a few more years. Thank you.
Board member Mullen?
Thank you. Yes, I want to echo the comments about Robin's work on this board, although mine has been a short experience with her. I've been on both sides of this table throughout my career, and I always appreciated decision makers that do their homework. And are prepared when they come here. They interact with the staff people for clarification so they have a clear understanding of what is being asked. And they're not grandstanders like some people tend to be in certain situations. And I've always appreciated that with you, is that you come prepared and your questions and follow-up are insightful. And that's what this board needs. It's a very important responsibility sitting up at this dais with this group. And important decisions are made that impact tens of thousands of people with essential services. And so I think it's going to be hard to replace your commitment and dedication, but I really appreciate what you've done in our interaction together.
And hopefully
do it.
last but not least, I met Robin 11 years ago, and she was becoming an attorney, and I'm so glad you've done that. And I'm really glad that I've had the chance to be here for the short time while I was here with you on this board. I know you'll go on to bigger and better things perhaps, but most of all, you'll stay in everybody's hearts that's here on the board because you knew what you were doing. Thank you kindly.
Director Burke?
Thank you. On behalf of the Water Department, Board Member Bartholow, I just want to thank you for your service. It has been an absolute pleasure to work with you. I know when you first started with the board, you reached out and wanted to meet, and we were able to provide you with lots of information. You were so gracious in trying to understand everything, gather all the data, as was said before by previous board members. You did your homework and always came prepared, and you've just been exceptionally easy to work with from a staff perspective. So you will be missed. We greatly appreciate your leadership, and thank you so much for your service.
Robin,
Wow,
floor is yours.
thank you. I am very touched by that, by all of your words. Thank you so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure being on this board for the past 3 years. I learned a lot from all of you, and in particular under the leadership of you, Dan, and you, Bill. You know, it has been a very, very rewarding experience, and I thank you all. I also would like to thank Councilmember McDonald for appointing me to the board in the first place and giving me the opportunity. I would like to thank you, Jennifer, as the leader of Santa Rosa Water, because your staff is outstanding. I mean, really, let's give them a round of applause. Seriously, you guys, you know, you're consummate professionals. You're all smart as heck, and you're great teachers, because when you come onto this board, there's a lot to learn. And I appreciate all the things you all have taught me. And Michelle, thank you so much, because you are the magic that happens that makes being on this board so easy and such a joy. So yes, I plan to follow you all. I won't stalk you, but I will follow you and see what you're up to. And again, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Before we take a photo, we'll open it up for any public comment on this matter. Anybody wishing to comment can move to the podium. All right, then if we could, we can adjourn here to the front, and we'll take a picture with Robin. Got your all of us. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our study session. Director Burke?
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our study session today is our fiscal year 2026-27 water, local wastewater, regional reuse, and stormwater and creeks funds, operation, maintenance, and capital expenditure requests. And Nick Harvey, our Deputy Director of Administration, and Liz Hanley, our Supervising Engineer with our asset management team, will be making the presentation.
Thank you, Director Burke, and good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. As was mentioned, I'm Nick Harvey, Deputy Director of Administration with Santa Rosa Water, and I'm joined today by Liz Hanley, the Supervising Engineer of our Asset Management Division. She's going to fill in a little later in the presentation, give some background around our CIP funding plan for next year. So with that, we will get into it. Okay, and as far as our agenda today, we'll start with some background information, some funding, policy, and regulatory information about our enterprise funds and what we do here. We'll then get into some assumptions that staff used in developing the budget. We'll talk to you about our actual proposed budget for each of the enterprises. I'll hand it to Liz to go over our CIP funding, and then we'll finish with the rest of the budget schedule. So our water enterprise is funded by a combination of rate revenues and demand, miscellaneous, and other fees. For the year ended June 30, 2025, the water fund brought in approximately $52.1 million in rate revenues from about 54,000 customer accounts. Our water rates consist of fixed and usage aspects with 2 tiers for single-family accounts. We generated about $3.1 million in demand and miscellaneous fees for the year. Our local sewer enterprise generated $74.4 million in rate revenues across 50,000 customer accounts last year. Our sewer rates also consist of fixed and usage components billed at a single tier, but with some variability based on the strength of discharge for commercial accounts. The local sewer enterprise generated $4.7 million in demand, miscellaneous, and other charges last year. The regional enterprise consists of Santa Rosa and the 4 regional partner agencies, those being Rohnert Park, Cotati, Sebastopol, and the South Park Sanitation District. Operating costs are allocated to the partners on an annual basis based on prorated flows into the plant. CIP funding is distributed based on percentages set forth in the Master Subregional Agreement, which guides our regional enterprise. And debt service is allocated depending on the benefit derived for each particular agency, and the split on debt service costs is unique to each individual debt issuance. Our Stormwater and Creeks enterprise was created in 1996 to comply with NPDES permit requirements and to address several concerns in the city related to wet weather events. This enterprise is funded by an annual parcel assessment and is funded by a combination of enterprise revenues, some funding from the general fund, as well as special revenue funds to support the enterprise's CIP program. The special revenue funds being things such as capital facilities fees, gas taxes, or other grant programs. A large component of the Stormwater and Creeks enterprise annual expenditure budget is used to fund programs related to regulatory compliance, with the city's special revenue funds, again, being used to supplement the CIP appropriations. About 47% of revenues generated by the enterprise each year are used to fund stormwater, with the remaining 53% going to fund the Creeks enterprise. The stormwater assessment is placed on the Sonoma County property tax rolls each year, and it's based on the number of equivalent residential units, or ERUs, on a given parcel. For 2024-25, parcels were assessed at a rate of $41.31 per equivalent residential unit. And for the current year, 25-26, parcels will be assessed a rate of $42.46 per ERU. The annual assessment is escalated each year by the increase in the Bay Area CPI. So Santa Rosa Water's enterprises are governed by California Proposition 218. This means generally that funds between enterprises cannot be commingled, cannot be used to subsidize customers, and rates must be approved through a public hearing process. Rates also must have a nexus with the cost of providing services. The regional enterprise is also governed by the sub-regional agreement, with Santa Rosa's portion being funded each year by our sewer rates. On the stormwater and creek side, a vote would be required to increase the annual assessment beyond just the increase in the Bay Area CPI index. So looking at some assumptions that were used to develop our budgets this year, we're projecting water deliveries to increase by 1.1% based on the assumption of some growth occurring in the city. We're not counting on demand increase at this point in time. Wastewater use will remain flat, which we typically see as a result of our sewer capping practices that we use for sewer billings. Development is slowing somewhat. We've seen a lower trend in those development or demand fee revenues coming in rather. And so we have decreased the projected budget for next year based on what we're actually seeing. And our rates will increase per the current proposed 5-year schedule. Plus we're adding back the pass-through on the wholesale water rate increase from Sonoma Water. And per the 5-year rate plan that was approved last year by council and this board, we are implementing 6% fixed and usage increases on the water side and 5% for both aspects on the sewer side as of July 1, 2026. So in general, some of the expenditure increases we're seeing is salaries are increasing 4% department-wide based on labor contracts that were negotiated. At this time, we are not requesting any reclassifications or new position requests. We'll keep you posted if that changes, but right now there's no plan for such. We're seeing electricity budgets go up, as well as our water purchase. I'll have more detail on those line items for you a little later in the presentation. We're also seeing some moderate increases in our internal overhead costs. People and services cost more citywide, so therefore the overhead that we're expected to absorb is going to go up kind of in lockstep. And as a general note, operations and maintenance projects are up in local wastewater, but they're down in our other funds. So we're seeing modest O&M increases for each of our operating funds, with the larger increase in the water fund mostly attributable to that Sonoma Water wholesale rate increase. Stormwater and creeks are only increasing by 1% in the aggregate, with about 22% of that funding, or $742,000, being provided by the general fund with next year's budget. Our total proposed expenditure budget for 2026-27, inclusive of water, sewer, stormwater and creeks, and Santa Rosa's contribution to the regional enterprise, is $170.2 million rather. Personnel costs and wholesale water purchases continue to be our largest O&M expenditure categories. We plan on delivering approximately $32.4 million in capital projects, continuing our plan to steadily increase our capital investments over the next several years, per that adopted rate schedule and our associated financial planning efforts. Looking at the water fund summary, salaries, we could see that those salaries, they're up almost 11%. You may wonder why that is if we have 4% MOU increases coming through. Basically, in the water enterprise, we're seeing a lot of planned retirements and vacation sellbacks, and so we did increase our budgets in the miscellaneous salary categories to account for those costs. Our O&M project budget in the water operations fund is down quite a bit. So unlike the rest of our operations and maintenance expenditures, project budgets don't turn back to the fund at the end of the year like our other O&M line items. We have healthy budgetary balances in our projects, and we'll continue using those funds in the coming year. Professional services are increasing by 16% in the fund due to increasing well operating fees that we plan to pay to the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, as well as anticipated increase in the cost of background checks, employee onboarding costs, real estate support, and surveying services. Water billing cost decrease, the water billing cost decrease is largely attributable to the adoption of our pass-through of the credit card processing fees that we implemented earlier this year. So water billing, rather than paying $800 to $1 million in outside services costs for credit card processing, we were able to save about we think between $600,000 and $800,000 a year, and that's reflected in these utility billing allocations to the other operating funds. And operational supplies requests are up 13% next year, mostly due to cost increases in the brass components needed to install and repair fire hydrants. So the two main factors affecting our water purchase budget are water delivery volumes and changes to the Sonoma Water wholesale water rate. As mentioned earlier, we're assuming a 1.1% increase in delivery volumes attributable to growth and a wholesale rate increase of 8.21%, putting the wholesale price of water at $1,515 per acre foot. We project wholesale demand for next year to be about 15,610 acre feet for a total budgeted water purchase cost of approximately $23.7 million for the year. The total operations and maintenance budget for the water enterprise is $49.1 million for next year, again, with most of that being dedicated to water purchases. So O&M expenditures in the local wastewater fund are essentially flat as compared to last year, showing that we've budgetarily hedged against increasing personnel costs by achieving reductions in other categories. We're seeing savings in the water billing category, just as in the water fund, again attributable to reduced payment processing charges. We're also seeing a nice reduction in insurance premiums of almost 17%, which is a welcome change. You all may not remember, but last year we absorbed a 75% year-over-year increase in that line item. So to see a reduction this year is a pleasant surprise. The miscellaneous category is seeing a nearly 9% reduction for next year, largely due to the fact that some rental equipment and maintenance needs for the West College facility are not being budgeted for next year. So here's the graphic on the wastewater O&M budget allocation. The majority of the budget going to fund personnel, water billing, and overhead costs. So our overall O&M budget increases in the regional operating fund have been held to just 3%, due in large part to the year-over-year reduction in requested funding for O&M projects. The regional O&M projects are currently holding significant carryover funding, just like we saw in the local water enterprise. So we are utilizing that funding to offset our requests for next year. So we're seeing a big benefit due to that. Our biosolids section is driving the nearly 20% increase to the professional services category due to expected increases in the cost of biosolid land application, as well as commercial disposal through Listec. Vehicle replacement and maintenance is also increasing, and that's based on garage guidance, as well as the need to increase vehicle replacement fund contributions to ensure sufficient funding for future vehicle replacements. Utilities are increasing by 9% due to anticipated increased electricity demand due to some trouble we've had with the CHP engines, which help generally offset energy demand, and as well as the need to utilize higher UV doses for our current UV disinfection treatment. And the $126,000 capital outlay budget is intended to purchase some replacement vehicles. So here's a breakdown of the total regional expenditures for next year, inclusive of the planned miscellaneous revenues represented by a negative figure, as it reduces net expenditure allocations in the fund. Personnel costs, debt service, and capital expenditures continue to be the most significant budgetary categories in the regional enterprise. So here's a summary of the refund reserve balance as of June 30, 2025, as allocated to each partner agency. As you can see, nearly $7.5 million was generated last year, owing largely to the success of our trucked waste program, as well as strong interest in miscellaneous revenues. As a reminder, each of the regional partner agencies owns their respective balances and are free to use them as hedges against future cost allocations or simply cash them out and take a check. As discussed with our partner agencies at the last subTAC meeting, We are planning to consume approximately $7.5 million of this reserve to provide regional funding support for the remainder of the UV disinfection system replacement project. And that item will actually be at next week's council meeting as a consent item. So in terms of revenues, you could see we had an increase of about $1.6 million overall in our budgeted miscellaneous revenues. So we're seeing strong growth in interest earnings, so we're budgeting accordingly for next year. The reserve balances influence this as well, because if we have more cash sitting on the trial balance in the form of reserves, you have more cash accruing interest. So there is some benefit to having those reserves. They are increasing our interest income. Miscellaneous fees, we're budgeting higher based on strong actuals trends that we've been seeing. We've been picking up some momentum in the miscellaneous category, so budgeting accordingly. The Town of Windsor revenues continue to increase based on the contract escalation. And in total, we're planning for $8.4 million in miscellaneous revenues, so $1.6 million increase, obviously largely driven by the success of our tipping fees or our trucked waste program, which is increasing significantly. So when it comes to figuring the net O&M and CIP partner contribution to the enterprise, we start with the total O&M expenditure request of $54.6 million for the year. We then add the cash-funded CIP expenditure budget of $13 million for the year, as well as the additional O&M reserve needed to get the balance up to 15% of the O&M and meet our operating policy guidelines. So that gets us to a grand total of $68.6 million in total funding needs for the enterprise, not including debt service. We then subtract the miscellaneous revenue budget of $8.4 million, as shown on the previous slide, for net partner contributions of $60.2 million for the O&M and cash-funded CIP portions of the enterprise. So here are the tentative partner allocations for 26-27. As you can see, pretty modest increases. We're showing only about a 1% increase in our total funding requests from both ourselves and our partner agencies, with Cotati actually seeing a modest decrease based in that's usually a result of how the flows come in for the year. Sometimes the smaller agencies swap flow volumes, so some of the numbers fluctuate. So yeah, very modest increases. Again, we're able to hold the effective rate increases to fairly small levels, largely due to the strong revenues that are coming in. So great news there. And just as a reminder, I like to keep this in my presentations as a reminder, we are planning a $35 million bond issuance to fund the electrical infrastructure replacement project at the Laguna Treatment Plant. This was built in as an assumption to our rate modeling that was presented last year. Assuming 30-year amortization and a 5.5% interest rate, we think the debt service payments would be about $2.6 million per year, and then we followed that with the estimated impacts on an annual basis to each of our partner agencies as well as ourselves. So again, we haven't moved on this yet due to some timing constraints. When you issue bonds, you're typically supposed to spend the principal within 3 years to meet IRS guidelines. There's some long-term, some long time horizon procurement that's taken place on this project, and so we're not quite ready to pull the trigger on this issuance, but when we do, we'll be in discussion with finance and certainly keep this board informed. So looking at our operating fund reserves, we always like to check in on our reserve balances just so we can look at trends. Again, this is as of June 30, 2025, and as adjusted at year end by finance. Water added $5.8 million rather to the undesignated fund balance, so sitting at a total of $21.1 million. In the water operating fund, wastewater operating fund added $4.1 million to bring that up to a total of about $18.8 million. In our regional refund reserve, again, it's refund reserve, it's not undesignated fund balance like in the other funds, but again, we added $7.5 million to bring it just shy of 16.3 on a cumulative basis. Sorry, did I? Okay. Okay, so we always like to roll up our proposed budgets at a high level just to show you the projected impacts on reserve levels. So for next year in the water enterprise, we're proposing revenue budget of about $64.2 or $3 million against planned expenditures of 70.7, which makes a budgetary deficit of approximately $6.5 million for next year. Looking at our proposed local wastewater budget, we're proposing $87.4 million of total revenues against $94.4 million of expenditures, or generating a $6.9 million operating deficit. And again, as a reminder, I think this slide serves as a great illustration of just how impactful the cash hit to fund Santa Rosa's portion of the regional enterprise is, just how impactful it is to the local sewer enterprise. I think this lays it out very clearly. So Stormwater and Creeks is only increasing 1.1% in O&M in their O&M budget for next year, driven primarily by increased labor cost, and hedge large reductions in requested funding for professional services and vehicle costs. Furthermore, the general fund portion of Stormwater and Creeks budget request is only increasing by 1.9%. So they've found pretty significant cost offsets. And then most of the savings on their budget is a result of needing less professional services, outside consultants this year. So they were able to save quite a bit of money. And the Stormwater and Creeks O&M budget in total is $3.3 million, largely consisting of personnel costs, professional services, and overhead. And just a quick look at Stormwater and Creeks enterprise reserves at the end of fiscal year 2024-25, just like we did in the local water enterprises. Stormwater enterprise ended the year at $728,000 undesignated fund balance, having consumed about $10,000 during the year. And the Stormwater and Creeks enterprise ended the year at an undesignated fund balance of about $1.2 million, having consumed $100,000 of those reserves as a result of the year's operations. And with that, I'm now going to hand it over to Liz Hanley, our supervising engineer of asset management, and she's going to touch on some of the details of our CIP plan for next year.
Thank you, Deputy Director Harvey. As Nick just mentioned, I will be talking to you today about our planned CIP funding and highlighting a few projects from this year's upcoming fiscal CIP budget. Here on the screen, we have a high-level summary of what we're planning to invest in our capital projects for the next fiscal year. We are planning $16 million for water, $14.7 million for wastewater, $13 million for regional, and $1.7 million for stormwater and creeks. And I'll give a more detailed look at this spending over the coming slides. Here we have our water fund. We are budgeting $16 million this fiscal year. This is up from $15.5 million last year. You can see that our reservoir projects make up a majority of our funding at 37%, followed by our water mains and services at 21%, groundwater projects at 15%. Our master plan studies in miscellaneous category is 14% of our funding. And lastly, our pump stations and facilities are 13%. For our local wastewater fund, we are budgeting $14.7 million. This is up from $14.3 million last fiscal year. Our sewer mains and services projects make up 51% of our funding, followed by our sewer trunk projects at 38%. Our master plan studies and miscellaneous category is at 10%. And lastly, our lift station and facilities funding comes in at 0.3%. For our regional fund, we are budgeting $13 million. This is up from $12 million last year. Plant infrastructure projects make up a majority of our funding at 81%, followed by our master planning studies and miscellaneous category at 12%, and our reuse infrastructure at 8%. For the Stormwater Fund, we are budgeting $1.7 million this fiscal year. This is down from $3.4 million last year. The master plan studies and miscellaneous category make up a majority of our funding at 51%, followed by our storm drain projects at 35% and creek projects at 14%. Here we have an overview of the budget sheets that you also have before you today. I'll talk briefly about how they are organized to provide some clarity in reading and help you understand all of the details on those sheets. First, I will talk about the rows and then move on to the columns. The rows of the budget sheets are divided into categories with specific capital projects beneath each category header. There's a subtotal for each category and a grand total at the end of the table. For the columns, starting from left to right, the first column on the far left is the line number, which we often use as a reference when discussing the specifics of the budget. Next, you will see our PID number, which is our project identification number. The following column is our JL key column. This is a unique number assigned to each project to keep track of the finances. The project title is next and gives a brief description of the project. Funding types are the following column, and we give descriptions of each funding type here on the slide for reference. The next 6 columns, from the carryover column to the current encumbered column, give accounting on past spending. And the projected available column gives the existing funding that's available in the finance JL key at this current date. Our most important column for today's discussion is the year 1, 2026-2027 budget request column, which is then followed by year 2 through 5 proposed budgetary numbers. And lastly, on the far right is the total 5-year proposed budget. Moving on to our CIP projects. Over the coming slides, we'll give highlights of a few of our projects in the different categories, and those are listed here on the screen for reference. Our first project is a groundwater project. It is our PID 1997 Carly and Peter Springs Well Rehabilitation Project, which will replace the existing damaged and outdated Carly Well facility and convert it into a full-time production well. The Peter Springs Well will be separated out from the distribution system and converted to an irrigation well. And as part of this project, we'll also be abandoning the existing freeway well, which is at a different location. The estimated project cost is $7.9 million. The project is currently in design and expected to go to construction in year 3. Our next project is a pump station and reservoir project. This is PID 2212, Phase 5 of our tank seismic upgrade and pump station improvements for various reservoirs and stations throughout the city. The project will upgrade reservoirs R9A and R16 to current seismic code and standards, and also upgrades pump stations S16 and S17 to increase fire flow capacity and improve system resiliency. The total estimated project cost is $15.4 million, and the project is currently in design and should go to construction in year 1. Our next project is a water and sewer main replacement project on Pioneer Road. It's PID 2420. This project will replace mains within Pioneer Road from Airway Drive to Cleveland Avenue. The estimated project cost is $5.3 million, and it is also currently in design and expected to go to construction in year 1. On the next slide, we have our sewer trunk category, and we have PID 2115 Robles Trunk Lining Phase 2, which will rehabilitate existing 42 to 45-inch trunk sewer lines and manholes. The estimated project cost is $9.2 million, and we anticipate design in this for this project in years 1 and 2, and then construction in year 3. For our stormwater program, we are highlighting PID 2580, which is our phase 3 of our storm drain on-call repair project. This project completes emergency storm drain repairs throughout the city as needs arise. The picture shows a corrugated metal storm drain pipe that has rusted out and is causing erosion on the stream bank. This is on Oakmont Creek and will be one of the priority projects addressed with this PID's funding. This has year 1 funding of $650,000, and we hope to be able to fund a similar amount in future years. Moving on to our regional projects, we have PID 1979, Laguna Treatment Plant secondary clarifiers, which will rehab clarifiers 1 through 3 with replacement or coating of the metal components and mechanisms, and also concrete repair. The estimated project cost is $8.9 million. The project is currently in design and expected to go to construction in year 2. Next, we have PID 544, Laguna Treatment Plant Flood Protection Project, which will construct retaining walls and floodgates to protect the treatment plant from flooding during peak wet weather events. The estimated project cost is $21.2 million, and this project will benefit from approximately $17 million in outside funding in the form of FEMA and HUD grants, which we hope to receive within the next few months. The project is currently in design and expected to go to construction in year 1. And lastly, for projects, we have PID 2448, Geysers Pump Station Electrical Upgrade Project, which is assessing the condition of the Geysers pump stations. It will prioritize and upgrade electrical components and develop a structured maintenance and replacement schedule. This project is estimated to be $6 million, and it is currently underway with work being completed in-house over the next several years. And with that, I'll hand it back to Deputy Director Harvey for the budget schedule.
Okay, luckily this list is getting a little shorter each time we meet, so I'll just quickly go over the remaining budget schedule. April 2nd, we'll be meeting with the partners at the Laguna Treatment Plant to formally request their recommendation of the regional reuse budget to both this board and council. Later that day, we'll be before you with a report item on our proposed budget and requesting your recommendation to council. April 21st, we'll be at council requesting their recommendation of the preliminary regional budget and cost allocations, as we like to inform our partner agencies as to what their costs will be by May 1st of each year. And then May 5th and 6th are the council budget study sessions and ultimate budget adoption to take place via public hearing at City Council on June 16th. And with that, we're happy to open it up for discussion and questions.
Thank you, both of you, for the presentation. Very thorough. I'll open it up for board member questions or comments. Board member Wright.
All right, two simple CIP questions. So Oakmont Treatment Plant, I didn't notice that on there until just now. Is that going to completely demolish it and get rid of it and be done with that plant, or what are we doing over there?
That specific CIP project is to replace the main that is over the creek.
To replace the what?
The sewer main that is
Oh, the
over
pipe,
creek.
the pipe bridge? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Carly Weld, that includes treatment?
That I am not sure of. I believe it does include treatment.
Okay, thank you.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, thank you. I was curious on the Laguna Treatment Plant project. You say that FEMA money is involved, and I'm concerned there appears to be some difficulties at the federal level as to whether or not FEMA is going to be as reliable as they were in the past. In the future, do we expect to get the full amount from FEMA that you are banking on?
Yes, everything that we have heard from the project manager on this specific project and this funding indicates that that funding is still on the way, and we hope to receive it in the coming months.
In 3 months, you said? Thank you kindly.
Board Member Mullen?
Thank you, and thank you for that presentation. I can tell a lot of work went into that, so thank you for that. A couple of my questions, I apologize in advance if they've been covered in previous budget cycles, but I'm sort of new to this, so I apologize if I'm being repetitive. First question is related to the funding models that we use for our partners versus the models that are used as a contractor with Sonoma Water. Do we use a similar model? I'm not sure whether it's connection-based, whether it's population-based, or are they similar is basically my question.
Well, they're two completely different sides of the equation. First of all, and Mr. Hobsetter, step in if I misspeak here, I don't believe Sonoma Water is a Prop 218 agency. So first of all, that's a big difference. We as a department are subject to Prop 218. They are not. They're obviously creating, treating, and delivering potable water, whereas we are simply trying to treat it and dispose of it per environmental regulations. Also, their motive, they require a profit on the water they sell to operate, and our regional enterprise isn't. We don't bill for region. We don't. From a customer-facing standpoint, we don't bill. It all comes from each agency's sewer reserves, essentially. And basically, the way we budget is we gather all the expenditures, we net out the revenues we think we're going to earn, and we only allocate the net expenditures to the partners. And so since the goal of that enterprise isn't to build reserves and it's just to keep it whole and keep it moving, I would argue that we are very unlike Sonoma Water, and I think that's a very apples to oranges comparison.
Okay, thank you for that. So the model that we use, as you're describing, is it's fully funded by the partners. We call them partners. So they're basically paying 100% of their costs based on the data they deliver to us and we review.
Correct.
We're not subsidizing, basically.
No, we are not subsidizing, because to do so would be a violation of Prop 218 on the sewer side for us. So yeah, we're very diligent in how we calculate and run that.
Good, I appreciate that.
That program.
One of my other questions is related to, we're starting to hear about water, the snowpacks real low, water deliveries around the state now could be in jeopardy. And I recognize that we're in the Russian River and we're not up in the mountains, but the D word is starting to be kicked around now. And so I'll ask the same question I asked once before, is about drought contingency plans in our operating budgets, so that if we have to implement water cutbacks, 10%, 20%, whatever the number is, and we ask our 50,000 ratepayers to do that, and they do it, most of them do it, that we don't have to then turn around and say, oh, you did such a great job, now we're not covering our fixed costs, and so we're going to have to raise rates. So do we have a drought contingency plan in this budget?
Not specifically in this budget, and I'm a finance guy, so I can't speak to the actual drought conditions or any water supply issues, but from the financial side, we do not budget per se for drought conditions, but we do have several tools at our disposal. We have a water shortage contingency plan, which designates that under certain specified conditions, the rates can be changed on an emergency basis to help us recover enough revenues to remain a going concern. We also have the catastrophic reserves in each fund, which are available for a number of purposes. For example, after the 2017 fires, we moved a lot of appropriations around. So if we have major damages as a result of a natural disaster, we can liquidate those funds. We can also use them to bolster our finances in the case of a drought and the ensuing financial impacts. And also per the rate modeling and the rate plan that we brought forth last year, part of that proposal, part of that plan was to increase fairly significantly our contingency, our reserve for contingency balances in each of our operating funds. And so when you look at reserve for contingency, they're not very robust at this point in terms of balances, but we're hoping to get them there. And that's also going to hedge against any future financial risks as a result of any of those conditions.
So I understand what you're saying is you believe or are confident that there is money in this budget to deal with the situation I'm just talking about.
Yes, but not in
If and
this,
when it occurs.
not in, there's money in the enterprise. So when we talk about budget, we're talking about income statement, expenses, and capital costs. We do have monies that we can use, but they're not part of this budget because they actually sit on our trial balances in the funds, and they're not part of our operating cash flows, if that makes sense.
But it's available to us.
Yes. Yes.
And we have to make findings. I understand all that.
Yes, and of course, none of us has a crystal ball. I can't guarantee that something incredibly catastrophic could happen and guarantee that we'd have all the cash on hand we needed to address it. But we are taking measures to have balances available for such conditions.
And the reason I keep harping on this is I think we're starting to see the drought word and situations come more frequently. It used to be a 10-year cycle. Now it's much shorter than that and much more regular. And just if we're in a position where we can help people during that difficult period of time when they do what you ask them to do, as far as cut back their usage, and then you say, oh, by the way, we have to raise your rates. If we can avoid that, I think we're above most of the water utilities in the state. So that's the reason I'm asking those questions. So thank you for that. Last question is, I've talked with Director Burke and some of the staff about this issue that I raised before, and it hasn't come back to this body for further direction. But the issue about census and the model that we're using since we've brought them on board for automatic reading, and we read the meters 4 times an hour, as I understand it, and I asked about what the cost is, and if we, for instance, looked at a model where we started reading the meters of all 50,000 customers once an hour, which is 24 times a day, does that still serve our needs, and what's the cost impact of that? Is it too late to make it a part of this budget, or is it an ongoing project that we'll be exploring in the operating budget?
Well, those costs are actually pursuant to a contract. So without any changes to a contract of some sort, we would not be able to lower the costs. So the costs aren't part of this budget because they would be dictated by a revised contract, but with the service providers. But first of all, I have to own up. In our meeting, I made a mistake. It said we read the meters 4 times per hour. It actually already is only once per hour. So I misspoke. So unless we would want to explore options where we read less often than that, and again, I would have concerns that to do so would be effectively reducing service levels for our customers, especially with regards to the Water Smart portal. I mean, we can explore anything we want. I don't know that the cost benefit is necessarily, I don't know if it makes sense from a cost benefit perspective or how much the needle would move per se, but we're certainly happy to keep discussing.
So I appreciate the clarification on that, and this board hasn't really given that direction. I'm just one person raising this topic, but the issue of, I would prefer to see data before we say we don't think it's going to be cost effective. It's easy to say, well, this is the way we've always done it for the last 7 or 8 years or whatever the timeline is, but technology and the way we use technology has evolved significantly in the last decade. And so I think we owe it to the ratepayers to be on top of that and find ways that, I mean, we're looking at, if you go back to your 5-year model, we're looking at pretty significant increases over the next 5 years on both of the enterprise operations. Is if we can save, a certain amount of money, well, what's the number? And then we can decide, well, that's not really a number that's worth it, or it's worth it. So I just want to make sure we don't lose track of it until it comes back to this body and you get clear direction. So thank you.
Through the chair, Board Member Mullen, we are pursuing your request, and we'll be bringing that back to this full board for direction on whether or not to look at a future feasibility study. I'm hoping to bring that back in sometime next month, is the current plan. And just to reiterate, right now the contract is included in this budget. So the costs we currently have for our AMI are included. And if we can find, we're always looking for cost savings. So if we can find an opportunity to do that, we would definitely bring that back forward to the board.
Other board member questions or comments? Vice Chair Arnone?
Thanks for the presentation. I've before mentioned my concern about our lack of sufficient funding to take care of the infrastructure for stormwaters. And I know the first step in addressing that issue is to do a master plan, which I understand is getting close to being ready for public review. And I guess my question is, do we anticipate, I'm sure that nothing in that master plan is going to affect this budget, but do we have any idea of when we might be able to start augmenting at least our capital budget for stormwater so that we can stay on top of the infrastructure instead of chasing it?
I will defer to our director on that one.
Thank you, Vice Chair Arnone. It's a great question. The first step is the storm drain master plan. It's our first ever, so we're very excited about that, and we think it's going to provide a lot of great information, data, and guidance. Our next step is it's going to be a lot of joint discussions with our finance department, city manager, as well as the council, because and the only way we can increase is either to put out another ballot measure, to have additional funding from the general fund, which seems unlikely, or to go down the road of seeing if we could successfully create an enterprise and everything that would be related to a Prop 218 enterprise and everything that would be related to that. So I would like to say that it would be something that we would, we would like to have information sooner, but I think it's going to be quite a few years making in the progress to go down that road. But we are very, we're taking the steps to start going down that road.
Excellent, and I'll keep asking the question.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, thank you for the very nice presentation. The last time that we talked about some of this, I voted no because I have a concern about the increasing costs that are being upheld by the ratepayers. And I'm interested in how we can perhaps find ways so that those who are water conservationists, such as Mr. Mullen spoke about, are not going to see increases in their bills. And at the same time, keep all of our operating situations as funded as necessary. So I haven't been as well educated yet as Ms. Bartholow was, perhaps, and I'm still trying to learn about how we can make these things more self-sufficient throughout, and at the same time have our ratepayers know that these 8% increases coming from Sonoma County to us are not going to have a negative effect upon a Santa Rosa residents rates in the future. So I guess the best way to put this is I'm still not as fully educated as I need to be to understand why we're going to have Sonoma Water put in 5 years of 8% increases, which cumulatively really raises the cost for a ratepayer a lot. And I guess the best way to put it also would be, I'll be voting yes that this goes forward because I've learned more today, but I need to get a chance through Ms. Burke. May I speak with Mr. Harvey in the future to understand these budgeting situations better?
Yes, I'm happy to set up a meeting.
Thank you kindly for your time.
Any other board member questions or comments? Thank you again for the presentation. We'll open it up now for public comment on item 5.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, that will take care of item 5.1. We have minutes for the meetings on February 5th and March 5th. Are there any board member comments or questions regarding those meetings minutes? Hearing none, we'll open it up for public comment on item 6.1 and 6.2. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one, those minutes will be approved and entered. We have a couple of staff briefings. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our first staff briefing will be on Senate Bill 707, Brown Act Amendments Overview, and Michelle Montoya, our administrative analyst and the board's recording secretary, will be presenting.
Welcome, Ms. Montoya.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the Board of Public Utilities. I'm Michelle Montoya, Administrative Analyst with Santa Rosa Water and your recording secretary. Today, we will be covering some of the Brown Act updates that have occurred with the implementation of State Bill 707, which was signed into law by the governor in October of 2025. Most of the provisions from SB 707 will affect our city council. However, there are changes that will affect us at the board level. First, SB 707 has worked to provide greater clarity regarding the remote alternative participation rules. SB 707 combines the past just cause or emergency circumstances from AB 2449 into one, which is now identified as just cause provision of Government Code Section 54953.8. Under this, the board is no longer required to vote to allow remote participation. The board member still must disclose if anyone over the age of 18 is present and what their relationship is to that person. If just cause is used, public comments must be taken from Zoom. If there is a technology disruption, the meeting must recess until service can be restored. And the meeting minutes must identify the remote members and the reason for their remote participation. The annual limits for remote participation still apply under just cause. For the Board of Public Utilities, because we meet twice per month, you are able to utilize just cause 5 times per year. The reasons you may use just cause include a caregiving need for a qualifying family member, a contagious illness, as we saw recently with Board Member Badenfort, physical or mental condition, official business travel for the city, not for personal business. There are also 3 new categories under this provision. Those include care for immunocompromised family member, physical or family medical emergency, or military service preventing attendance. When a member of the board needs an accommodation, a formal city approval must be given. Once approval is received, the member must participate in the meetings with audio and video on, unless the accommodation allows for the video to be off. They must disclose if there's anyone aged 18 or older with them in the room or at their location. The board member participating remotely due to an accommodation will count towards the in-person quorum. So that means that if there's 3 members here in council chamber and our 4th member is using an accommodation through Zoom, that will count towards the quorum. There is also no limit to how many times a member may participate virtually while the accommodation is active. Examples of reasonable accommodations would be hospitalization, recovering from surgery, or being immunocompromised. City clerk staff will be making recommendations to council to adopt the reasonable accommodations policy for council and boards and commission members, and to make amendments to Santa Rosa City Code 1-10.070 regarding related minute requirements. There are 2 ways to participate remotely. First, with traditional teleconferencing. These rules are unchanged and still allow you to participate from a remote location as long as the location is accessible to the public and the address is listed on the agenda. Under traditional teleconferencing, public comment must also be done at the location of the board member. The second option, which we touched on in a previous slide, is the just cause provision. We saw with board member Badenfort, she stated if there were other adult individuals in the location with her, we saw her state she will leave her video camera and audio on, and she provided her reason for utilizing just cause, which was a contagious illness. That information was also captured in the meeting minutes memorializing her statement. Next, as of January 1st, 2026, all officials serving on legislative bodies must be given a copy of the Brown Act. To bring us into compliance, the city clerk's office emailed out the link for the Brown Act to all city boards and commission members that were currently serving in December of 2025. They also sent out a secondary email that provided a list of all meeting locations that are used throughout the city. Moving forward, it will be up to the department to provide any new BPU members with this information during our onboarding process. In 2021, rules were set forth on the use of social media. This provision was originally set to expire in 2026. However, it has now been made permanent. The social media provision is simple. Board members are not allowed to like or comment on each other's social media posts, whether on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., when the topic relates to the subject matter jurisdiction of the board they serve on. This applies even if the majority of the board does not respond. Even one member reacting is prohibited. The main change for disruptive behavior has shifted to include not only in-person participation, but virtual participation as well. This solidifies that remote or Zoom participation can be addressed in the same manner as they would be in council chamber. This allows for the presiding officer to address disruptive behavior that is happening virtually by issuing warnings, limiting participation, or removing the participant from the meeting if needed. However, in situations involving violence or threats of violence, the presiding officer is no longer required to issue a warning first. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well done.
Thank you.
Open it up now for board member questions or comments. Board member DeWitt?
There's more to these changes, though. I actually had someone contact me by email and state, hey, this new approach for the Brown Act might allow board members to actually interact with someone from the audience, because there's something in there that states you can advise, you can discuss, things of that nature. I didn't get time to read the new stuff yet. I just got that email yesterday and I was like, oh, all right. Can you tell me if there's anything that's changed on the ability of board members to be able?
I am not aware of that. I would need to check in with our city clerk to get more clarity around that. And I am happy to do so and come back with an answer for you.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open up for public comment on item 7.1. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise. Thank you again for your presentation. You did very well. We'll now move to item 7.2. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our next staff briefing is our water and recycled water supply update. And Peter Martin, Deputy Director, Water Resources, and Andrew Romero, Superintendent of Wastewater Reclamation, will be making the presentation.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. Here today with a water and recycled water supply update. Notably, we're about halfway through the 2026 water year by the end of this month, which started in October of last year. Did want to point out that rainfall in Santa Rosa is about 88% of normal, so a little below normal levels for rainfall, after several wet years, of course. So. Just in terms of the regional storage, Lake Pillsbury is at about 53,000 acre feet as of today, which is about 87% of their target storage of supply for this time of year. Just thinking ahead of what PG&E's plans are for the year for the operations of the Potter Valley project, their target, of course, is about 25,000 acre feet of water by October 1st, where you can see the dotted line curve. They, as such, and given that they are operating without the utilization of the slide gates that allows them to store more water in spring due to seismic risk, they have asked for a variance from their minimum flows into the east branch of the Russian River. That is out for public comment with FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, right now. And they will be looking to potentially impose some reductions in flows beginning April 15th. Of course, that's all pending the approval by the FERC as well. Again, this is much like they've been pursuing year to year, given the differences in their operations from historical operations. And then in terms of storage in Lake Mendocino on the Russian River, storage is at about 87,200 acre feet as of today. They are still working within the forecast-informed reservoir operations pool, so we're able to overwinter some additional water through that program during the January and February storms. Again, you can see the curve for storage allowances begins to increase in the beginning of March through the period of May. Again, they are encroaching on a period where they can store additional water. I should mention, too, that the Army Corps makes decisions on releases during the time when they're working in that forecast-informed reservation operations pool. So for both Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma, right now, the Army Corps is day-to-day operations of the releases and operations of the reservoirs. As of today in Lake Sonoma, storage is at about 264,700 acre feet. Right at the top of the additional storage they're allowed for this time of year. So a very full reservoir going into the summer months. I guess we're still in winter technically, so going into the spring months. Just to highlight, this is a good time given this is the wettest time of the year. The benefits that Sonoma Water has realized in this current condition through their utilization of forecast-informed reservoir operations, which again allows Sonoma Water to store additional water above and beyond traditionally what they had been allowed to do. for flood control operations during the wintertime. Right now, due to that sort of opportunity, they are currently storing additional 19,000 acre-feet of additional storage in Lake Sonoma, where we get our water supply. They're at the maximum amount that they can store under those conditions. Lake Mendocino has about 3,400 acre-feet of additional storage that's been realized through the program. So they have a permanent 12,000 acre-foot opportunity to store water. Of course, that gap diminishes as the year goes on with the increased storage allowances. But, so it really allows them to capture a substantial amount of water in January and February where they hadn't previously. So. And then again, just as I mentioned, the Army Corps is currently coordinating decisions for releases through the program as well. And then just a reminder that for the purposes of the in-stream flows, Sonoma Water is operating under their winter operations through a temporary urgency change order that is in effect for 6 months through June 21st. For determining minimum stream flows, the water year hydrologic index is to be based on storage in Lake Mendocino instead of the cumulative inflow to Lake Pillsbury. You can see in a year like this where that really comes into play because there's quite a difference in the flow regimes and what's happening in the Eel River versus the Russian River. So as such, current water supply conditions in the Russian River are normal, and so they are able to maintain that as well. That concludes my portion of the update, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Romero.
Thank you, Peter. I think it's something. Right. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin and members of the board. My name is Andrew Romero, Reclamation Superintendent, and I will be providing you a recap of this past year. This slide is a summary of our urban usage with the city of Rohnert Park and Santa Rosa. The city is contractually obligated to deliver up to 450 million gallons to Rohnert Park, which they use 314 million gallons. Our city of Santa Rosa urban usage was 15.7 million gallons for the 2025 irrigation season. In addition, the city installed a new filter at the West College Pump Station, which we expect will supply our users with better water quality. This slide is a recap of the 2025 agriculture irrigation season. We allocated just shy of 1.4 billion gallons to our ag users. The total usage through December was 69% of the 1.4 billion gallons allocated. Ag season officially ended this year on November 7th. In addition, we irrigated 180 million gallons on the city farms, which are leased by local farmers to grow, use, and sell the crops that are produced. This graph is just a visual of the water that was allocated for ag in blue for the last few years and what they used in yellow. For example, in the year 2025, we allocated just shy of 1.4 billion gallons, and ag used around 950 million gallons, as the graph indicates. Here's a few pictures from the Geysers annual shutdown. The shutdown is typically for 2 weeks, so staff can drain and inspect the Bear Canyon wet well, exercise valves and clean critical electrical components, and repair any equipment that requires a full shutdown. The picture on your left side is inside the Bear Canyon wet well, which is located up on the Pine Flat Road. The wet well is a 500,000 gallon reservoir. Staff inspected the wet well for corrosion, coating of pumps, and any other defects that may be present. The middle picture is after the pump bowls were painted by city staff to inhibit corrosion. The picture on the far right is the East Station wet well, which staff inspected too. As a reminder, the East Station wet well is located across the street at the Laguna Treatment Plant. This slide shows the recycled water storage curve. Currently, we have 1,059 million gallons in storage, which is 124 million gallons above average for this time of year. However, with the dry weather recently, our storage has stabilized and has flatlined, as you can see in the red trend. That concludes the 2025 recycled water recap, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you gentlemen. I'll open up now for any board member questions or comments. Board Member Mullen?
Thank you. Just one question for Director Martin. Your comment about the flood, what Sonoma Water does with the flood, where they, I want to make sure I understand what you were saying. Is so at the end of the season, which we're kind of approaching the rainy season, they take what they've been storing and they keep it in the event to carry over in the summer because of the evaporation loss. I mean, I can only imagine what we've lost in the last week with these temperatures like that. But so it's kind of a game that we're not a game. It's a process where we take water that normally would just flow out and we're saving it to carry us through the irrigation system. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, Board Member Rowland, that's exactly correct. You can see, if you look at this graphic here, the black line, that storm that occurred early January, and allowed them where that gap is between the two dotted lines there. They previously would have had to draw down storage in December and January to the lower gray line. They were allowed to encroach in that space where they historically wouldn't have through new changes to the operations of Lake Mendocino and the reservoir to store that additional storage at a time when they wouldn't have had that opportunity in the past. So that allows them to hold that water back and of course puts them in a better position later on in the end of the year as well. So,
is this a new operational development with Sonoma Water, or it's been ongoing?
It was actually at Lake Mendocino. It was formalized, I think, just this last winter. So they've actually completely redone their water control manual for Lake Mendocino. Sonoma Water is currently working with the Army Corps to replicate that effort in Lake Sonoma. So it's likely the next reservoir to have the same type of changes to their operational manual will be Lake Sonoma as well. So it's a way to reoperate reservoirs utilizing new data tools to make new water without actually having to build any new dams. So,
Great, thank you.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, thank you. And also for that explanation, I remember reading some news stories about this. I wanted to ask Mr. Romero about the wastewater. It's interesting, Rohnert Park is smaller than us, and yet they use more of the wastewater recycled. Is there a way we can bump up our numbers also? Isn't that what we want to do? Use as much as possible?
We would have to expand the irrigation system on the Santa Rosa's urban system, so.
With that in mind, can we perhaps get the hobby farms more involved? I saw they were at 0. Maybe smaller farms could be utilizing the reuse.
Yeah, that's more of their choice. They're growing, it's just small parcels. They just, have little vegetables that they grow for themselves. So that's their choice that they would have to make to irrigate.
Right. Along with what Mr. Mullins said earlier about he calls it the D word, the drought. So it's been 50 years since the drought of 76, 77 that was so problematic. Many of us back at that time learned to be water conservationists in a big way. I still have many friends that have the buckets in the shower and all types of things of this nature. If we are on the cusp of another drought type situation, will we be exploring how to use water that's been previously used? I don't consider it waste. I consider all water an asset and that recycled water can be helpful. Are we set up, if we fall back into a drought, that we'll be able to use that water better?
Well, that's exactly what this program does. We send water to the geysers, which is reuses the water. And then we also irrigate schools, parks, and Rohnert Park and Santa Rosa. Finley Center is one of our largest users. So that's what this program already does, is help conserve water and water reuse.
Sure, and I understand all that. I guess what I'm asking is, do we have an agreement with the geysers that if we need to use the water here, that somehow it's going to be allowed to give them less of the recycled if necessary?
Now, we're contractually obligated to deliver 90% of the 4.6 billion gallons per year. So that's just a set volume. I believe it ends in 2037. So that's the volume that we have to deliver.
Thank you for educating me. Thank you.
Any other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll open it up for public comment on item number, what are we on? 7.2. Wish to make a comment on item 7.2, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise. Thank you, gentlemen. We have 3 items on the consent calendar.
I'll move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Arnone, seconded by Board Member Mullen to approve the consent calendar. Do we have any questions or comments from the board? We'll open it up then for public comment on the consent calendar. If you wish to make a comment, please move to the podium. Seeing no one rise, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Board Member Bedenfort is absent. Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin.
Aye.
The consent calendar passes unanimously with Board Member Bedenfort absent.
Thank you. We'll now move to our one report item, item 9.1. Director Burke.
Thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. Our report item today, is adoption of a mitigated negative declaration and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Kelly Farm Mitigation Bank. And making the presentation will be Sean McNeil, our Deputy Director of Environmental Services, and Christine Gaspar, consultant with GHD Consulting.
Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, members of the board. I'm Sean McNeil, Deputy Director of Environmental Services, and I'm joined here with Christine Gaspar from GHD, and she's going to help with this presentation today. But I'll go ahead and kick us off. The presentation outline, we're just going to kind of go over the project overview, give you a current status of the project, and then we'll go through the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA, and then we'll end with a recommendation. So we've been working on this project for a number of years. We've had a whole host of city staff and consultants working with us to get us to this point. It's a pretty complicated project, and so we will be available to answer any questions that you might have along the way. But it seems to be going well, and as you'll see in this presentation, I think there's a lot of positive things for the city and our ratepayers in developing this bank. So the concept is to develop approximately a 99-acre part of the Kelly Farm into a tiger salamander and wetland mitigation bank. The California tiger salamanders, we've surveyed all of our city farms. The only one where we found them was on Kelly Farm, and they are there's a known breeding pool really close to where our mitigation bank is sited. So we expect that by enhancing this property, we will be successful in helping to aid in the recovery of the species. This site has been leased to farmers for hay production over many years. It had been taken out of lease about 4 years ago, and since then we have been reducing the amount of recycled water and nutrients put on the farm so that the soils could go to a lower nutrient level, which is more beneficial for native plants. And the bank would cease any irrigation on the actual parcel, but we will continue to have a recycled water line that travels through the parcel and going to another property delivering recycled water for a local vineyard. The current status of the project is we've completed our initial biological studies showing that what the biological sources that we have on site. We've developed our bank bank prospectus, which is our plan, and that's been accepted by the resource agencies. We have 100% construction drawings, which means we're ready in that respect to go out to bid. We've had the cultural resources have been evaluated, tribes have been we've communicated with them about that, and we're clear on that. And we now have a draft conservation easement that will be working its way through this board and then to City Council and then to the Board of Supervisors for completion. So the plan on this plan sheet, you can see the green areas are where we're proposing to enhance wetlands. And these are just going to be for wetland credits. And you get different kinds of credits depending on the level of effort to restore those. So many of these will just be minor enhancements. Some of them will be augmentation, removing some sediment, and others, all of them will be the role of removing invasive non-native plants and installing and planting a native seed bank into the areas. The 3 blue pools towards the lower left part of your screen, those are going to be further enhanced. They are going to be tiger salamander breeding pools. The need for tiger salamanders for a breeding pool is that they have to hold water long enough for the tiger salamanders to meet there when it starts to rain, lay and fertilize eggs in the water. The adults, which have lungs, swim out, and then the larvae develop in that pond, and they have gills at that part of their life stage, so they're breathing underwater, and so they have to stay in water until they fully develop as adults and can come out, or as juveniles, and come out of the pond with their lungs and breathe the air. So that part of their life cycle is very critical, so those pools have to be deep enough to maintain water in them throughout the season. And in years like this, the deeper the pool, the more likely they'll have a successful breeding season. Shallower pools will have dried out, and any larvae in there would not have made it to the next stage. And so those pools we're proposing to over-excavate, take out the clay soil and embed in that soil some bentonite, which will increase or decrease the infiltration rate of that soil so that they'll hold water longer. And then we'll place that back and pound that into the bottom of the pools. We will also be drilling a well on this project. The well it'll be an agricultural well to provide water for cattle grazing. Cattle grazing has been proven to be one of the better ways to protect the endangered plants and native plants in these wetland habitats and help keep the pools compacted. And so we'll be utilizing cattle as a part of this project. So just kind of to go through the summary of the credits that we would generate from this project. They come in different flavors, and just kind of sum them up. We have the California tiger salamander upland habitat. That's where adults and juveniles live. So just grassland areas where gophers will dig burrows, and they'll live in those burrows. We also have badgers out on the property, so badgers could dig burrows, and the tiger salamander could cohabitate in those as well. There will also be CTS breeding habitat, so those 3 blue ponds I showed you, those are considered these wetland habitats with the special case that they meet the criteria for breeding for tiger salamanders. And then we'll also have vernal pool wetland types. And so we'll be able to get credits. Not all of those credits generated for an acre conserved don't always result in an acre of credit, particularly the wetlands. You have to, the type of enhancements that we're doing, and there's a complex formula on these, but the type of enhancements we're doing are more like some of them are 2 to 1. So we have to modify 2 acres to get 1 acre of credit. Then the third column we have there is showing the estimated cost of these credits, and I can say the estimated costs for the Tiger Salamander was $300,000. I've seen some bids up to $320,000 per credit. The latest time we purchased wetlands, which we purchase less frequently than we have had to for Tiger Salamander, was at $1.2 million per credit. So what I've done in this table here is taken to estimate the value of this project to the ratepayers, is to take the sum of the credits that we'd be generating for that credit type and multiply it by the current cost of those credits to give you an estimated value of this project. And so that brings this estimated value of this project up to $35.8 million if we had to go out and buy those credits. So compare that with the estimated cost that we have of establishing this bank. Studies, fees, permitting, design, and construction management, we're estimating at $1.85 million. We're estimating construction, since we haven't gone out to bid, we don't know what the actual construction bids will be. We're estimating approximately $4 million for construction. We, as a part of developing a bank, we are required to fund 5 years of additional interim monitoring and management, and that comes to $450,000. And because the setting up of a mitigation bank is in perpetuity, we have to put up an endowment that will cover all the future expenses of the project. And that endowment will then have a return on it, which we can apply from the conservation easement holder to get those funds to make the necessary upgrades. So once there wouldn't be any future costs to this project, and that's what that endowment covers, and that comes to a total of $8.3 million. So when you compare that to the current cost to buy these credits at $35 million, it's a potential savings of over $27 million for our ratepayers for developing this project. Another benefit of developing this project that is not just the monetary value, it's actually the ability to develop and deliver projects in the Tiger Salamander area. Currently, there are not enough credits available for sale for our 2 projects that we're trying to move forward, and that's the Robles Trunk Lining Project, Phase 1, and the flood plain. So once this project gets approved by the interagency banking team, we would start to be able to use those credits, even if we haven't built the project yet, use a portion of those credits. So next steps are we are got to take this conservation easement. The property already has a conservation easement with the Ag and Open Space District, Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District. So we will need to record a new easement, subordinate the old easement to the new easement, and this has been one of the more complex aspects of this project. So we have all those agreements in place. We have drafts of those, and those will be coming to this board for in the next month or so for recommendation to City Council, and then that would get approved by the Board of Supervisors, and that would finalize those. We also, through the process of developing this bank, identified that Comcast was utilizing a portion of the property, had fiber optic cables already on the property, and through investigation, they existed before we had the conservation easement, and most likely, though we couldn't definitively state, that it had existed before the city had purchased the property. It was coaxial cable as well as some fiber optics. So we worked with them to develop an easement, worked with the interagency banking team to see how they wanted us to hold that easement. And so all of that has been sorted out. With that easement, we can record separately, and it will be out. We'll have to take that area outside of the Tiger Salamander Bank. And it's less than an acre of area for that easement. So, and we'll bring that as a separate item. And now, right now, probably maybe late winter, spring 2027, early in the year, we'll be coming to you with putting out the project to bid, for a construction season of summer 2027. But once the bank is, I just want to reiterate, once the bank is approved by the interagency banking team, which the easement and all that needs to be finalized, once that's done, we can utilize those credits. A part of the credits that the bank will have, and enough credits we've calculated to cover those 2 projects I mentioned. So I'm going to hand this over to Christine Gaspar to cover the CEQA process.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Galvin, board members. Is that better? Speak louder. Good afternoon. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the CEQA process. I know this is typically the boring part for people. Early on in the stage, it was determined that the path for CEQA, the appropriate path for CEQA would be preparation of an initial study and mitigated negative declaration. That was prepared. We put out the document for a 30-day public review period as required under CEQA. During that process, there were some comments received, one state agency comment letter, and a few of the neighbors reached out to the city and discussed the project with them. Mr. McNeil is going to talk more about that in a few slides. A mitigation, monitoring, and reporting program was prepared. There are some impacts identified in the CEQA document. And then, of course, today before you, you will be considering the adoption of the MND if you find it adequate. And if you do make that decision, tomorrow we'll go file the notice of determination. A little bit more detail about the noticing and public review process. There was actually several communications with the tribes, not only under AB 52, but also courtesy letters. The first letter went out in mid-2021. There was going to be some soil investigations at the site, so we let the tribes affiliated with the area know that that was happening. Later in the year, towards the end of the year, we sent out the official AB 52 notifications. And then at the same time, the Anthropological Study Center was preparing the archaeological resources report. They also reached out to the tribes to find out if they knew of anything particular at the project site. And then fast forward, to last year, we needed to update the cultural report to meet the needs of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And as part of that process, ASC reached out again to the tribes. This time when they reached out, Figure did express an interest to come visit the site. So during the pedestrian survey, a representative from Figure attended that. And there were no archaeological resources identified during the pedestrian survey. And then I think they were notified again by the U.S. Army Corps as part of their Section 106 process. So there was a lot for tribal. The comment period for the initial study started on January 16th and commenced for 30 days. The city actually did more than just the minimum requirements under CEQA. There was a notice of intent to adopt placed in the Press Democrat. It was posted at the county clerk. The ISMND was published at CEQAnet, at which point it was distributed to state and public agencies. And then the city had the document available at the counter at the Transportation and Public Works Department at 69 Stony, and then online on their website.
So we did receive some comments. So we got one written comment from an agency, and that was the California Department of Conservation. And the summary, the full comment letter is in the board packet, but a summary was they had concerns about a loss or conversion of agricultural lands and provided suggestions for mitigating loss. As I had mentioned, our intent and our management plan indicate that we will continue to be grazing the site, which is still an agricultural function, and maintaining that as our preferred way of controlling the weeds, as well as preserving the habitat that we're creating. So that was that comment. Wrong button. We also received an email requesting to talk, and our city engineer has summarized his conversation with one of our property owners of a vineyard on Occidental Road. It butts right up to the project. And they emailed, they had a concern that the city had purchased the property through eminent domain, and that in his thought that we were changing the use of the property significantly enough to be concerned. We have spoken with him. We've spoken with outside attorneys as well. And we have found that, first of all, that is not a CEQA concern. It doesn't mean that it's not a concern of the city. So we did look into it, and we determined that the site is for our water department to use. We're not selling these on the open market, and that it's helping us to continue to manage the systems that drive our recycled water. That's mostly going to be sewer pipes and the wastewater treatment plant. And that it also will have a recycled water line traveling right through the middle of it, and that use will continue. So we have a recycled water main, and that, yeah, those were the 3 points that we had. So if it was determined that we did feel that this was a dramatic change or dramatic enough change, it would just take a finding of the city council to modify that change of the use. But at this time, our outside attorneys did not see this as a change. Other comments we got, Mr. Gantman, who is also in the audience here today, he called to discuss a few topics. This summary that you have here is his conversation with the engineer. I have subsequently met Mr. Gantman on his property and saw and heard some of his concerns. I believe he has some things he wants to talk about with you today. And his concerns that were identified by our engineer working on this project was that the spreading of cow manure in the fields impacts the water quality, and that the California tiger salamander require to reproduce. He also had concerns that the new well that the city was drilling may impact the groundwater to a level where his well, where his property sits really close to this project area, could be affected. And that he had concerns about a new pest to our county. Relatively new pest has come since the fires in 2017. This Mediterranean oak borer, which is specifically targeting the valley oaks. And both Mr. Gantman and the city have numerous really old, large valley oaks on the property that have been showing disease and stress from these, and we've lost a few trees as well due to the disease. So our response to that, to his concerns, is that this mitigation bank will reduce the amount of manure spread on the property in general, because we won't be able to spread any on the mitigation property, but that the other areas of Kelly Farm will remain in their current agricultural leases, and that those lessees have the right to fertilize their property or their easements. The new well would only support a maximum head of 100 cattle, which would result in a demand of approximately half an acre foot per year, which is unlikely to affect his well, and that the city is already on the process of trying to monitor the spread of the Mediterranean oak borer, though that's not a part of this project. It's just a part of our stewardship on our farm properties. Back to you, Christine.
So there were a few impacts identified in the initial study related to biological resources and cultural resources. So there are measures in there to protect CTS, western pond turtle, badgers on site, as Sean mentioned, and then nesting birds and roosting bats. Although nothing was found during the cultural investigation, we can't rule out that once ground disturbance starts, something might be uncovered. So there is the traditional measures for what to do if unknown resources are discovered during construction, as well as tribal resources and human remains. And then the site, since we'll be working in wetlands and in a sensitive habitat, ground disturbance will be restricted between June 15th and October 15th. So in summary, the project was evaluated in accordance with CEQA. All potential impacts that were identified will be reduced to less than significant with the incorporation of mitigation. There were no significant impacts identified that could not be mitigated. The final analysis supports adoption of a MND. And then we've, of course, in accordance with CEQA, prepared the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, which will be used to document compliance with the mitigation measures.
So it is recommended by Santa Rosa Water and Transportation and Public Works Department that the Board of Public Utilities, by resolution, adopt the mitigated negative declaration for Kelly Farm Mitigation Bank project, adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approve the Kelly Farm mitigation project, and direct staff to file a notice of determination. And happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll open up now for any board member questions or comments. Vice Chair Arnone.
Excuse me. Thanks for the presentation. I just have a quick question. I believe you said that these new credits will be available for use on 2 projects which we have in the pipeline, and we'll take care of the need for that. My question is, do we have a feel for how much of the newly created mitigation bank will be consumed by those projects?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I want to say the first release, and they do a first release with approval of the bank. You don't have to necessarily have it constructed yet. It was 12, I think it was 12 acres, and it is enough to cover both the projects, and there was a little bit of wiggle room in there.
So there will be some left over after even those that we anticipate.
Yeah, oh yeah, the first release with bank approval is very small. So as you meet certain milestones as you go through the process, construction will result in another release, monitoring will result in another one. I think there's 4 different releases. There will be more in the future, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions? Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, following up on what was just mentioned, and also about Mr. Gant. Is there a Mr. Gant in the audience to speak? And he'll be speaking today? All right, I'd like to hear that. I am very interested in this type of a project, and I do believe that we should try to maximize how much will be available for the city to have credits and all these good things that have been talked about. We have to make sure, though, that it is all realistic and will actually occur. So I want to hear from Mr. Gant and see what the discussions are there, and basically say congratulations on something that could be really helpful if this all plays out in the way that it's been presented today. Thank you.
Any other board member questions or comments? I have a question. On the map where you have the blue pools, I understand the concept that they're going to be deeper and they're going to be the ones that will hopefully have water in them all the time. The other ones, I'm assuming then, could dry up during the course of the year or the breeding season. So how do we keep the tiger salamanders from laying their eggs in the shallow ones?
It's a great question. Tiger salamander, there's a lot that has been studied around tiger salamanders and breeding pools and preferences. I've participated in a number of those studies, as have a number of staff in our Stormwater and Creeks team. We are going to be partnering with the researcher who has been leading those studies to help us evaluate the effectiveness of these ponds as well as the upland habitat. One of the things he's excited about working with us to develop a research around is there's not a lot known about what habitat qualities that they like or do well in the dry season. There is a lot known about the pools. And what we've seen is not only are those ponds that are more successful, you're more likely to go back to the pond you came from. And so there may be some near misses. There may be some that go to the wrong pond, and those wouldn't result in successful progeny to come back. So it begins to be a process where the greater success will be in these larger ponds. Therefore, there would be more coming back to those. They have been found breeding in roadside ditches, so that, it isn't exactly they go right back to the same place, but we have seen them. There's a lot of research showing that they do go to other ponds and they don't meet a successful reproductive event.
So those ponds their location, is it because they're closer to where we know there are tiger salamander breeding grounds? Because they all seem to be kind of lumped in one little corner of the property.
So it's an iterative process with the interagency banking team. They have individuals from the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Army Corps of Engineers, the EPA, and the regional board. And they have had a lot of input into where those ponds end up being and where they didn't want to see them. In particular, we had a lot of gopher areas of high gopher density, which is a good indicator of where the adults might be. We had the ponds originally spread out more and actually had greater number of ponds proposed. And we had to reduce the ponds because they didn't want us disturbing those areas. The green areas are areas where there already are wetland features, and so it's just an enhancement of them, not a total recreation.
Thank you. Board Member Bartholomew.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I don't remember you giving this information. If you have, I apologize. But what is that time period that they need, between laying the eggs and them becoming juveniles and able to come out of the water and have functioning lungs? Is it 4 months? I'm just curious.
It's gonna vary by the season. Temperature is really important in that. When it's really cold, if it's a really cold winter, it takes them longer. But I believe it's in the range of 9 to 16 weeks. And so having these wetland features, and they also have to go dry, because predators like bullfrogs and fish will eat the larvae. So it has to both hold water but not too long. So there is a happy medium that's designed, and the size of these pools and their depth were all covered by the biologists who are working on this. And there's no guarantee that every year is going to be a successful year. So if we do talk about the droughts and things like that, those are going to be years where there's not going to be successful breeding.
So the larger ponds are intended to go dry at some point during the year?
Yes.
Okay. Other board member questions or comments? Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, there is supposedly a breeding pond right next to Santa Rosa's Southwest Community Park, owned by the city right now. And I go there, I walk by there, I see the sign that says it's a federally protected area, and I have not seen a salamander anywhere near it in at least a decade. I am very supportive of this project. I want to make sure that it works with the neighbors and that everybody's having a good situation from it. I would also ask that we begin to get with that specialist that you have in mind. Perhaps it's David Cook, if that's the case, and find out if the salamanders at the Southwest Community Park site are gone. Because if they're gone, shouldn't we be able to then take that spot and not have it be considered a California tiger salamander spot? The term I've heard from other biologists in the past is that it's extirpation of a species when they're not where they used to be. So I'm really glad you're going to get a spot over here, and you got a bunch of salamanders that are going to be there. How can we actually open this up to be even more helpful to the city of Santa Rosa by perhaps getting these other CTS sites, alleged CTS sites out of the mix, and then the city can use its other properties and do things? Is this too far down the road?
No, there is a process being worked on right now. So the Sonoma County, as well as many cities in the area, are working together on developing a habitat conservation plan, and that will be for the recovery of the species. And within that, there is kind of a roadmap that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has put together that kind of outlines what that would look like. It's very ambitious to get there. But that is one of their goals. And if the species is recovered and delisted, then all that is a wetland. It is still a wetland, and wetlands are protected regardless of the species. And I don't know the exact requirements that were put on the Parks Department when they developed that parcel around that pond. But that's would be the details of what would have to happen for that. First step would be the delisting of the species. I could tell you that's probably not going to happen with this project, but we are working on that, and this project would be in alignment with the goals of that program. And you could see in the future much larger mitigation banks. 100 acres is a very good size mitigation bank, so that we have adequate uplands and breeding habitat. The problem that population faced in Southwest Community Park is there's no upland habitat.
Right.
There's a park, and then there's houses, and there's a breeding pond. And so this is very different kind of project from that, and that park was developed at a time when the information about the species and the recovery of the species was less known.
Oh, yeah. And the county developed it.
Yeah, so I don't know that the water department has much control over that park, but we do have this project, which I think in its own is protective of the species, but also fits within a larger context of the delisting of the species, which would be the creation of large 600-acre preserves bounded by adequate habitat like agricultural lands and things like that at less developed areas. And so that process is happening. Probably just identifying and finishing that plan is probably more like 5 years. and the build-out of it would be related to the build-out of all of the communities that are signed on to that project.
Quick follow-up. Who's the person at U.S. Fish and Wildlife that's handling this? Do you remember the name?
Oh, our bank?
Yeah.
Toby McGuire.
Tobey Maguire, sounds like a Walt Disney film, nice. And then who for the city is working on this?
In the mitigation bank?
No, not our mitigation bank, on this bigger project you just mentioned called the Habitat Conservation Plan.
So I'm involved at some level, but it's our planning and economic development is the lead for the city on that, because it's related to the development of the city, to make sure that as developers want to come in and help us meet our housing goals, that there's adequate, there's a process for them to build in these areas that currently makes it much more challenging when you have to deal with tiger salamanders and other endangered species on a per project level. This would be looking at it, here's how we would build it, and then as the build out happens, that's how it gets funded.
All right, Ms. Burke, may I have permission to speak with Mr. McNeil about these things in the future, please?
Yes, but the appropriate contact would be Gabe Osborne in the Planning and Economic Development Department, because he's
I already got the okay to talk to him anytime.
Yeah, that's great.
I got to ask you for permission to talk to these folks. So I'm doing that right here, right now, and it's okay?
Yeah, just
Thank you.
just reach out to me and I will coordinate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Other board member questions or comments? All right, we'll now open it up for public comment on item 9.1. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium and wait for the timer to start. And please start by stating your name for the record. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Gartman, just for the record, and I'm also joined by my wife, Patricia. Try not to bore you. We're neighbors, so to speak, and I have approximately 2,400 linear feet of property line, and I share that with Kelly Farms for a little over 2,200 of those feet. We have lived on the property for 32 years, and we have done our best to take good care of it and keep it as natural as possible. We have spent a lot of time and money on this so far, and of course, you know, as things progress, things change, but in general, I would like to say that I am very much in favor of what the plans are here. And I would gladly support that, but I do also see that there are a couple of things that should be addressed and taken into consideration, as they might just mitigate your anticipated mitigation. And two of the bigger subjects there are, yes, the manure spreading and the newly found MOB, or the Mediterranean oak borer. So over the years, and unfortunately, Mr. Romero had already left, as I, you know, always had called the Reclamation Bureau when these manure spreaders get a little rogue. And or let me back up just a little bit. Not only do we share the fence line, but a lot of the natural drainage water from Kelly Farms on the east side and the south side circle around my property and then go underneath my property in a nice little culvert and end up on my property and then form a approximately 1 acre vernal pool that is also then on the other side of the fence line back on Kelly Farm as it circles around and then slowly heads south and then ends up over in Dewar Creek somewhere. So I have about 270 degrees of water circling around at any given time in the wintertime. Tiger salamanders? Oh yeah, I have lots of them. And whatever I move around, oops, all of a sudden, here it is. And pretty much, oh, am I out of time?
We'll give you a few minutes extra.
Okay, so I think what needs to be modified, over years, I have very good success with Mr. Robello, Mr. Romero, Mr. Piazza, and the Day Farms, and Robert Mahi, who is currently tending the farm up there. But there are also some rogue drivers and or other manure suppliers that last year showed up in end dumps, 32 cubic yard end dumps that lay a pile bigger than your desk and longer and higher than your desk. And that washes back and goes back into the vernal pools, circles my property where my well is, on top of everything else, and goes merrily right around the vernal pools and then heads south. I don't think that can be good for the tiger salamander or my well, unfortunately. So I like to have that addressed, and it has been done, but that participation has waned, and it should be very easily addressed by giving them clear instructions not to have these dump trucks start dumping manure in big piles right as soon as they get off Occidental Road, west of Hepworth Lane. And according to the farmer that is tending the property right now, he said it's very insignificant to leave the manure off that small piece of land that we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Ganman. Deputy Director O'Neill, do you want to respond, please?
Well, the mitigation bank wouldn't touch Mr. Gartman's property. It's a little offset. So it would currently the part of the property adjacent to his is under an ag lease, and so I don't really have any information about what the requirements are on that. And as he mentioned, that's normally handled by our reclamation group, but we can speak with them and get back to the board and Mr. Gartman about this issue and see if we can find a way to address it.
So my understanding is that the proposed mitigation bank does not have as part of its operation the spreading of any manure. Is that correct?
That's correct. But we're only 100 of the 500 acres. And so the other 400 acres are still in agricultural use, and they do use manure as their fertilizer.
But that's not contemplated to happen on the mitigation bank property portion.
Right.
Okay, all right. Any other board member questions or comments? Thank you again, Mr. Gantman, for your comments. Board member DeWitt.
I just wanted to make sure the correct spelling of your name, sir. Your last name, is it Gantman?
No, it's Gartmann.
Thank you. Gartman. Grantman. All right.
Thank you. All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that the Board of Public Utilities by resolution adopt a mitigated negative declaration for the Kelly Farm Mitigation Bank Project. 2, adopt a mitigation monitoring and reporting program. 3, approve the Kelly Farm Mitigation Bank Project. And 4, direct staff to file the notice of determination.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Board Member Wright, seconded by Board Member Bartholow. We've already had our comments and our public comments. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Wright?
Aye.
Board Member Mullen?
Aye.
Board Member DeWitt?
Yes, please.
Board Member Bartholow?
Aye.
Vice Chair Arnone?
Aye.
And Chair Galvin?
Aye.
Let the record reflect that that resolution passes unanimously with Board Member Badenford absent.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comments on non-agenda matters. If you wish to make a comment on a non-agenda matter, you may move to the podium. See no one rise. We have no referrals. We have no written communications. I believe we have one subcommittee report. Board Member Wright.
Yes, we do. So the Budget Subcommittee met yesterday to do a final review of the water's proposed fiscal year 26-27 water, wastewater, regional, and stormwater and creeks operations and maintenance, capital improvement, and debt service budgets, and voted to recommend the budget to the full board, which we saw earlier today. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board? If not, we'll open it up for public comment on item number 13. If you wish to make a comment on item 13, please move to the podium. See no one rise. We have any board member reports? All right, we'll move. Sure.
Excuse me. The City of Santa Rosa holds an Earth Day event here at the downtown square on the 25th of April. In Roseland, along Roseland Creek, which is on a Santa Rosa City parks, proposed park area now, the community members have been doing an Earth Day out there for decades. And on the 18th of April, there'll be community members, that's a Saturday, at that Roseland Creek site doing some volunteer work. If any of you'd like to come out there and see the Roseland neighborhood, as the people out there call that 5-acre oak woodland next to the creek on a 19.5-acre site owned by the city. Thank you. It's at 10 in the morning.
Thank you. We'll now take any public comments on the board member report. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium. See no one rise. We have a director's report, I believe. Director Burke.
Yes, thank you, Chair Galvin and members of the board. I have a couple items to share. First off, I wanted to let the board know that as part of our continued effort to look at possible different funding strategies, our team is working to possibly submit a letter of interest for a Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, or WIFIA loan, related to our Fulton Road lift station relocation. WIFIA is a federal credit program administered by the Environmental Protection Agency, and it provides long-term, low-cost supplemental loans for regional and national water infrastructure projects. If awarded, the loan can be paid back for up to 35 years after the notice of completion is filed on the project, with flexible terms that would allow us to strategically plan cash flows. The interest rate on any potential loan is not known at this time, but federal funding programs are typically a low-cost option as compared to revenue bonds or other outside debt. So this particular project would rebuild the current Fulton Road lift station to current standards, upgrade the SCADA system, increase cybersecurity, improve system robustness, and reduce vulnerability to service disruptions that can occur during emergencies. The total estimated project cost is $38 million, and we are requesting the max loan amount, which is 49%, so that would be $18.6 million. If we are invited to participate further, we would work closely with this board to determine if this funding strategy should be pursued, and ultimately with the council to apply. So I wanted to let the board know. It's a lot of work for staff, and I'm very pleased and happy about the amount of effort they've put into this, looking for different funding strategies. Second, I wanted to provide an update on our Llano Trunk project next steps. The board may recall a few years ago, I let the board know that the city had received a Water Resources Development Act authorization for $19.4 million. That is available to the Water Department for water and sewer infrastructure improvements. I believe I also shared a few board meetings ago that we finally, received a $2.29 million appropriation in this federal work plan, this coming fiscal year federal work plan, to work with the Army Corps through their environmental infrastructure program, which would provide for the design and environmental work for the next segment of phase 2 of our Llano Trunk lining project. So we are very excited to be starting work with the Corps, and we have also put forward another earmark funding request, which was supported by the city manager and city council, to ask for an additional $3.56 million in funding, which would allow us to continue working with the Corps to start, hopefully, construction on 2 of the 5 segments of phase 2 of the project. So again, we're continuing to explore all options and opportunities to look at other funding mechanisms that can supplement our ratepayer dollars. And then last, I wanted to let the board know some very good news. On March 5th, the Northern California chapter of the American Public Works Association awarded the city's Lower Colgan Creek Restoration Phase 3 project the Best Public Works Project in the $5 to $10 million range category. So it's very exciting. I got to go to that at that's why I missed our last board meeting. The Lower Colgan Creek Phase 3 project tied together both Phase 1 and Phase 2, which when you combine the total area, restored 1.3 miles of creek encompassing 15 acres of land of newly restored riparian habitat. There is a Class 1 ADA accessible pedestrian and bike pathway with a pedestrian bridge connecting the project area to Bellevue Avenue that is popular with the community and is helping to connect the neighborhoods in that area. We are going to be inviting the officers of the American Public Works Association to present the award to this board at an upcoming meeting, so we're working on that. And last, if you want to be more involved with the project, our 3rd volunteer planting day will occur this Saturday, March 21st at 9 a.m. It'll be going on from 9 until noon, and we meet at the restoration site near the corner of Mojave Avenue and Monument Drive. Tools, gloves, and snacks are provided. But again, I just want to congratulate the Stormwater and Creeks team, as well as our CIP team who helped work on this exceptional project. And we were lucky enough to get an award. So that is my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you and congratulations. Any questions for the director? We'll now open it up then for public comment on item number 15. If you wish to make a public comment, please move to the podium. See no one rise. All right, that takes care of our agenda for today. So we will adjourn today's meeting in honor of soon-to-be former board member Bartholow and wish her all the best of luck in the future. Amen. So we are adjourned.